Jonathan, Thomas, and John. You're going nowhere.
Story of my life.
Get back here.
Did you mean that rhetorically? Did you mean that figuratively?
A little bit of everything.
It's from the Bronx too. Now you can't be.
The door is locked.
Is there a particular order here?
Yeah, you must have.
No.
Alphabetical by height.
The goal of this panel is organized pandemonium. So we're going to have a little structure here at the start, but the main objective is to capitalize on the fact that this is a live event and that we have a bunch of really smart people who are talking about something important to all of you, i.e. immersive learning. So I guess I'll kind of just jump right into it. And once Mr. Simon Miller, who I see is on there, Simon, your camera and audio are off. Maybe that's by choice because it's, I don't know if you've got your I don't know if you've done your hair yet, Simon, or if you've drinking your coffee. But point of this panel here, hello Simon, welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Yes, I was polishing my head.
I think it's 4:30 in Melbourne, if I'm not mistaken.
It is 4:30.
Wonderful. So today we are having a little bit of an interactive panel of sorts where I'm kind of welcoming all of you, and then we'll be doing kind of quick little 5-minute mini case study examples of what all these different individuals are leading from their own perspective around immersive learning and how it ties into the human operator and what really real outcomes it's bringing. But of course, the reason why we're here today is this evolution from the file to the Train Summit to really dive into who, what, when, where, why immersive learning. And when it comes to this kind of technology, one of my mentors, Gary Breeze, says this. He's like, I assume the technology works. For the technology companies up here, I believe the technology works. I'm not going to question if the connections work or how good the technology is. But what it really comes down to is, what is it actually going to do for the fire service? How does it actually help make the fire service make better decisions? How does it help reduce risk? How does it help lower costs? All those are the things that I actually care about, kind of that dynamic too, if no one really cares about how the sausage is made, they just want the sausage. But a lot of this all ultimately comes down to, again, this technology helping the fire service be better, create a better ROI, and especially when you are a fire department spending taxpayer dollars, it better have an ROI and it better have a positive outcome that makes it worthwhile for the reasons why you're spending money on that. So one big thing when I think about technology in the fire service, I think a lot of us can look at drones and kind of speak to, hey, maybe 15 years ago everyone thought they were crazy. Again, kind of modern day new tech. I mean, there was AEDs and there was infrared cameras, and those are all great examples. But drones in particular, most people are like, that, we'll never have that. And now it's sort of like, they're not a nice to have, they're almost a must have. And I think you're seeing now with immersive learning, it's out of the box. Pandora's box is officially open, and we can't ignore the fact that immersive learning is offering and creating significant enhancements to how we can train and be better, get those sets and reps. So without me further rambling on, I guess one final thing, I want to give a special shout out and thank you to Ken Willett and Casey Grant, amongst everyone else here, but a little round of applause for Ken and Casey, who are just like some of the best, most humble, amazing guys that I'm fortunate to work with. So thank you both for the opportunity here today. So now we're going to do some rapid 5-ish, 6-minute type sessions here, and then we're going to kind of then drive into active Q&A, active dialogue. So I encourage you to, if you have a question or two while they're talking, by all means, go for it. But I think between now and then, we want to just kind of save it for the panel. So first, Sam from SOLOXR. I don't have a bio for you, but I know you're from SOLOXR. So Sam.
Thank you, Kevin. I think, because we've been in different settings like before when we met in 2023,
I believe so, yeah.
So I'm Sam Hadla. I'm the president and CTO of SOLOXR. Our company is based in Florida. We specialize in creating, immersive engineering, immersive, XR, AR, VR technologies, plus the digital twins. And the focus that we worked for the last, I think, 3 or 4 years is providing, the immersive experiences. And I say immersive, which is today I learned, and I thought, okay, immersive is everything you do in a training is immersive, but we specialize in doing immersive VR, virtual reality and augmented reality kind of trainings, and for the emergency responders and the firefighters. we have created one of the, I think it, concentrated VR training for the firefighters dealing with electrical vehicle fires, and working with, and I copied you, Kevin, thanks to, the SMEs, especially we really like Ken and, Casey and folks also from the NFPA. It's always come to the subject matter experts. As a developer, you cannot do it from the outside. You have, the SMEs to be integrated from step one or even step zero when you starting developing your experience, immersive experience, and taking into that and converting it into an experience that benefit and reduce cost and saving life, and it has like also investing in creating a more like muscle memory and have the cognitive learning to be enhanced. So that's what we focus, and that's what we've been working for, and thank you also for the opportunity.
Of course, and yeah, I should have mentioned, I kind of have like a key question I want to ask each person. So the question I have for you, Sam, is what have been some of the biggest lessons from deploying immersive learning in fire or other high-risk sectors?
We learned, I think, from the first, like high fidelity is not always, creating experiences with like to be the flashiest. It's more of taking that experience and turn it into a more of a learning experience and providing that experience to be matching what the firefighters do in real life. So keeping that balance, and of course, as developers, we are all excited to do, use the technology and having the best of the latest, but we find out, no, it's always having that balance between the technology and also from the experience, because you cannot do anything without the experience from the SMEs.
Great, and if you could give us one kind of mini customer success story that you've had that you could share with us today.
A couple of years ago, we've been approached by railway, the BNSF railway, and they had this massive training, which is the casual training using the PowerPoint, and it is, we found it a little bit difficult, but we had certain, kind of meeting with the SMEs, and to turn that 120 PowerPoint kind of normal training into a more of experience training, like an immersive virtual reality training. We succeeded into, dividing that PowerPoint training into several modules, around like 7 or 8. We produced the first one, and we got the response from the hazmat training team. They loved it, especially they said the younger generation, they are more, attracted to using the VR experiences.
Recording in progress.
More of, enhanced training, and, having the procedure, standard operation procedure more, have it better understanding and more enhanced training.
Great. Thanks, Sam. All right, so we're going to continue going through the rapid fire, so I appreciate that, Sam. So next we're going to Simon Miller, all the way from Melbourne. And Simon, if you want to give, I know you have a couple slides if you want to screen share. And the question I have for you, Simon, as you're going, is I want to know how do you measure the effectiveness of immersive training, and what metrics matter the most? So Simon, the floor is yours, and take it away.
Thanks, Kevin. Actually, I won't share. Maybe you could share that after the event. But just FLAIM innovates immersive, multi-sensory, mixed reality training systems to improve firefighter readiness in high-risk situations. Our core purpose is to prepare people to respond to hazards and emergencies safely and confidently. We do this by creating lifelike virtual incidents wherein firefighters can learn and practice individually or in a team, safely and more frequently, to retain deep memory for recall when faced with real-life hazards. Our approach is to address the challenges and limitations to the continuum of firefighter training. We know that live fire training is critical to ensure firefighters appreciate the dangers they will face, but it is becoming increasingly challenging to deliver due to personal health, environmental, economic constraints, and once initial training concludes, ongoing skills maintenance is difficult due to several factors. Primarily, as somebody in the States told me when I first started in this industry, 20% of call-outs for first responders. In the 70s were fires. It's now down to less than 4%. Classroom theory lacks engagement with visual, practical learners, and therefore theoretical lectures do not connect with our deep limbic learning system. Gas-fired simulators can't depict the real-world variables of fires, combustibles, ventilations, and the emerging alternative energy risks such as EVs that are expensive to build and maintain. All forms of fire is damaging to the environment, especially when combined with synthetic or treated materials. And most importantly, why expose the firefighters to an increased level of carcinogenic exposure if it can be avoided? And finally, and most importantly, studies by the NFPA and the World Health Organization continue to highlight the significant percentage of firefighters that are exposed to carcinogenic exposure and could be ultimately leading to a higher level of mortality in the industry. We believe synthetic learning systems, much like pilot training, etc., is a very positive solution to address some of these training gaps.
Great, thank you, Simon. And so I think we're going to continue to, I'd ask you that one question of what metrics matter most. I think you touched on that, but you want to touch on that, Simon, just for maybe 30 seconds to a minute on the metrics that matter most when you're, as you're working with fire department customers and fire service, what are the most important metrics that FLAIM is able to help capture and create and report back?
Sure. Well, our system's designed predominantly to enable the training facilitator to actually determine the metrics that they want to capture. So in each of the scenarios, we have a adaptable after-action review. So this can then determine how the fire team, the individual of the fire team reacts to the hazards that they face in the scenario, in the virtual scenario. So it enables them to both learn, practice and perform in a broad range of risks and hazards. We can capture the decision making of an individual both from a digital point of view perspective, i.e. where they are within the scenario, what actions and decisions are being taken in real time, and the facilitator has the option to turn this into a sort of a dynamic learning environment. So if the scenario, if people are making not incorrect but improvable decisions during a scenario, the facilitator can stop, pause and reflect and review. So as a key metric, we would say the most important metric is decision making. We also have the ability to record and analyze the output of a training scenario for an after-action review that it is in real time and non-subjective. And then finally, the ability to record individual stress factors, air consumption, core body temperature, pulse, and heart rate variability to qualify the personal health and well-being of the individual in a safe learning environment. So giving us leading indicators as to the possibility, probability of risk to the individual.
Great. Thank you, Simon. More to follow on that. So next, continue going around the horn. Jonathan Boyd with Allen FD.
Yes.
I know you had something.
Were you able to pull up mine?
Yes, I wasn't. But the wonderful Srini was.
Yeah, I put together a really high-tech presentation here.
I think it's that bottom.
It's that bottom one.
Yeah, train.
Yeah.
Advanced name too.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just have to be there.
Oh. Yeah, there we go. Look at it, see? It's my graphic design right there. But yeah, if you'll just click on that first link and go to that site, we'll see if this pulls up. It's LinkedIn. Nope. Okay. There we go. Yeah, hit play right there. Okay, so this
on scene,
oh.
1301 Century. We got a 2-story residential.
So you can see this is the virtual environment that we built for our community and our fire department to train with. And our journey began with a book named Boyd, believe it or not, another Colonel John Boyd in the military who created the Oates loop, which is pretty, what most military people are very familiar with, and I'm sure a lot of you are. But that led into kind of a study of how we make decisions on the fire ground using naturalistic decision making. Essentially, knowing that when we're stressed, we can't necessarily make a logical decision, we make decisions based on past experience. And so the challenge is, how do we give people past experience when we're, we don't have that many fires, right? We're like any other suburban department, so how do we get really experienced people? And simulation is the natural tool for that. That led into, well, understanding that we're training the brain, not the hands and the muscles and the feet, it's just your brain. Then we could kind of discard the fidelity needs of what I do with my hands and feet and really make it more about immersing them in an environment that's just really activating their brain. So we did that from 2009 to 2019 or so, and like I talked about, the company that had provided the tech went out of business, and so if we were going to continue it, we would have to just create our own. So I actually went to IPSDI, which is a large military simulation conference, and walked the floor and asked who would build this thing for me, and I finally came upon a company that since went out of business, but I was able to steal their developer, and he's the one that knows how to program this stuff, and so that's why we were able to do this. And we had a lot of goals based on what we had previously known from our first one. We knew we wanted it to be cloud-based. We knew it was about training the team, not the individual, so it needs to be a multi-user environment. And it needed to be cost-effective and to keep it up to date, right? Because I didn't want another platform that was going to go out of business. So it's built using the Unity gaming engine. All the digital assets we have, we bought off of the asset store. For example, this single-family home you see, I think it costs like $25 to buy from somebody that already designed it. And so that's huge cost savings when you don't have to do art and development. If you want to click on that next link. And the nice thing about that is we're able to continue updating it. This next slide, if you'll just hit play on that one, shows like some of the updates we're doing, which one of them is having a hose, which is unbelievably complicated, believe it or not, because you got to calculate how a hose works. And then the other thing that we've expanded is also, well, what do we need to teach people? What experiences do they need to have? And so we've expanded it into active attack. There's some footage from that'll come up in a little bit, just because our role changes and what we need to use to make decisions as a team. That involves everything from fighting fire to EMS, and then now active attack, and how do we manage that? And that's in conjunction with police departments, who aren't that great at command structures. They're used to operating as individuals. And so this is, you can see some of the advances we made with like thermal imaging, how it looks, all that. And that's just based on our instructors who have done this for many, many years, deciding this is the areas that need more fidelity versus others that don't. And so we have about $1.5 million in this. Somehow convinced our city council to spend that kind of money on a video game, but it's actually very beneficial to our community because we have a much better. Our firefighters, our company officers, our chiefs they are experts at radio communication and how to organize the fire ground, and that's unusual for our size department to have every single person at a par level that's adequate, right? Because you got to get your weakest link up to a level, because that one person can kind of crater your whole incident. So that's I think the result of that, and our community has experienced that because we had an active attack incident at our large outdoor mall, 35-acre thing. We had an attacker show up and just start shooting people. There was about 5,000 to 6,000 people on site, and our you know, the lives that were saved were due to the first responders' bravery. There's no way getting around that. But one of the reasons why we were able to quickly transport and save every savable life is because of the way they were able to communicate and organize the incident. So this is where we're expanding it into the future, is just a lot of these updates. And then if you'll click to the next slide, the next part about it, I know I'm over my 5 minutes, maybe I'm going fast.
You're good.
Yeah. The next part about this is free to anybody that wants to use it. If you want to click on this QR code, well, if you go back to the QR code, they can use that to access those files, which are the curriculum. It's the a paper that I wrote on this the simulation and some actual results, and then also instructions on how to download it yourself onto your own PC. Because this is distributed through Steam, which is a common platform for gaming, and that's how it works. It's Fortnite or Call of Duty with hoses instead of guns. So we're looking to build a community as opposed to selling it, because I think that does more for the program than making whatever money. Like you talked about, John, about how small the market is, so I know there's no money out there. And and I hope people can help kind of develop this. And so we have a single family home, we have a school, we have a office warehouse, and then we have a retail residential, and we're working towards high rise.
I mean, you can just keep going. You're on fire right now. Thank you. Before I turn it to Deputy Chief Chenworth, I do want to just, and this kind of it parlays into your question or to what I want you to talk about, but you're a little bit of a unique situation that you're a fire department that's actually involved in the development of it, and so it's kind of almost like a unicorn type situation. But what do you think has been some of the biggest operational challenge in adopting immersive learning? You talked about getting over $1 million approved. How have you overcome that barrier to, like, this isn't a video game, this is actually a tool that has these real life learning outcomes?
Yeah, I think so the operational challenge, I mean, we were fortunate that we were able to buy a product that cost $30,000 back in 2009. So I wasn't trying to get $1 million then, but we had the data to show how valuable it was during that time, and that data is in that paper. So we were able to objectively show this is how we improve performance, and we would not have that in performance improvement. But you also got to contrast that with, if we tried to get these same reps in a traditional training environment, how expensive would that be? I mean, training facilities of $30, $35 million, $40 million, and then not only that, but the wear and tear on people and equipment, and just how much time they're out of service to be able to do that, and I still can't get as many reps. And so that's really being able to quantify that and justify it in a way, you know, that the elected officials in public, they get that, because they want a really good fire department, and if you're telling them this is how you did it. As far as the organizational how to do it, I had the advantage of being the chief. And so, because there is a certain amount of leadership that has to just say, we're doing this. And it does need to come from the top. It is just organizational change 101. The results are too good for us not to do this, so we are going to do it. Because you are going to come up against people saying it's a video game. I mean, I do too. It's a video game, it's this, it's that, or whatever. But at some point, someone's going to have to say, we're doing this. And this is how we do it. We say how many reps you have to have, right? And I think fire service as a whole, I think, if there was a regulatory body that said, hey, reps are important, so here's how many reps you gotta have to do this. How many reps for this system. And you can go do it out in the training field if you want, or you can use a simulator, but people are gonna use a simulator, because if you said you gotta have 10 adequate reps of managing a mayday before you're an incident commander, it's gonna be difficult to get everybody through that in a traditional training environment if you don't have a simulator. So I think that's how we do it and make people have to perform in this environment. But I think the fire service as a whole could also do that.
Well said. Thanks, Jonathan. All right, so next we're going to you, Chenworth.
Yep.
You guys some slides, right? All right, so it's all you, and I think one of the questions I want you to lean into a little bit is, obviously Allen FD is one aspect, but everyone knows DC Fire. It's a little bit of a bigger beast, but how you kind of approach this from a larger fire department perspective, and what are some of the challenges and how you see it from a larger metro perspective.
Great. All right, so just to get real quick started. All right, so we've had struggles over the years with command officers, battalion chiefs, acting battalion chiefs, all being on the same page, not necessarily delivering that command structure the way we wanted it. So there was a group of individuals that got together, and these aren't chiefs, chief officers, you know, at the battalion, deputy, and assistant chief level. These were officers at the sergeant, lieutenant, and captain level saying, hey, there's a problem that we need to address, and we have an idea. So they pitched that to the assistant fire chief of operations a while back, and we came up with, or they came up with, how do we train our company officers to be better? And then from that, it kind of grew into, well, let's train our battalion commanders to do better at incidents, and also our acting captains that, you know, fill into those roles every once in a while. You know, some of the things that we don't really have an opportunity to run that often. I mean, we run, you know, bread and butter, row home fires, daily basis. You know, part about it is we had a facility that we abandoned. It was an old firehouse. We built a new firehouse north of that facility, and we were able to put this command sim lab in there. So I'm gonna go, and I'll talk you through this a little bit. All right. So this was the first thing that they were starting with. The battalion buggy pulls into the old firehouse. They have that large screen up front, and on the way to the incident, so they're driving from a location to the firehouse, they're responding basically. Once they get into the actual facility, they see the image of the building, what's on fire, where is it on fire, what's the initial piece of apparatus placement, and they start making their decisions from that point. So this is something that we started, it was very effective, and then we were able to add some other stuff into it, because how many times do we run a legitimate hazmat incident, a legitimate rope rescue call, trench rescue? So we're able to exercise all of those, which we were never really ever able to exercise out in the field. I was a special ops chief for 4 years, and I ran a whole bunch of hazmat calls. I ran one technical rescue or high angle rescue, never ran a trench, never ran a real confined space for 4 years, you know? But in the sim lab, I was able to exercise some of that stuff. And some of our other battalion chiefs that were trying to move from regular operations into special operations, we exercise that with them here as well. All right, and then we go one step further. And then we do the same thing with the company officers. So company officers inside the fire engine, they have a crew. These are newly promoted sergeants. So they're up in the front of the apparatus. As they're responding, they're watching the screen. They see what they would see going down the street. And then once they get there, they have to get out of the apparatus, talk on the radio, give their size up. And then as they go around to the back of the building, tell their crew, this is what I want you to do. I want you to pull a line. I want you to, you know, force entry here. So they're making that, you know, that connection with their crew. And now they have their peers there to give them some advice, some ways to hone in some of their skills. And they can run 6 reps in a day, and there's 4 people in each one of these crews. So they get the experience that they're not going to get out on the fire truck before they get to be in charge. All right. So that's just a couple things that we add. And again, once this class is done at the sim lab, then they're back down at the training school running these with actual scenarios in the burn building. Next thing I wanted to chat a little bit about is our EMS training. So this looks very familiar to what John had up on the board from Penn State University. So we have something very similar with our simulation for EMS, because 80+% of what we do is EMS. I don't know if that's standard across the United States, but it's pretty much where we're at. But you know, we're trying to immerse our EMTs and paramedics into those environments. So when I came through the training school, I was a first responder when I came in. I went through EMT training, and I knew how to put the sticky side down on that Band-Aid, and that was about the extent of it, because we really didn't practice. You know, we did blood pressures, everybody sitting in the room while you're in class, but we really didn't go out and do things in the field. And then once you got out there and you were cut loose, you could figure it out on your own. Not the best way to deliver EMS care, but now we're to a point where we're doing that much more effectively than we have in the past, and again, we're doing the same.
This is a simulated ambulance. We use it for training our EMTs and paramedics for as lifelike experience as possible.
And then once they're into that, then we get into the immersion lab.
And we can't take 42 students and put them on a metro platform at rush hour. But if we want to recreate that experience, we can
So this is really cool because you go into this room, there's cameras that are projecting on every wall, and we can make this the Metro Tunnel, which, you know, this is from one of our facilities. We can be at the Capitol, we can be in a crowd of 150,000 people on the mall, and you walk in and you get the noise, the distractions, everything else that's going on. Because once you're in the metro and that metro train starts going past you, you can't hear blood pressure, you can't hear through your stethoscope, so you can't, you know, talk at a normal level, you have to elevate. So all of that is being done in these immersion labs that we were able to purchase a number of years ago.
Create
Once
that
this starts off,
experience
you'll
without
see
feeling
how
being
unique
on the
this
Metro
is.
platform by using a 360 camera and projections across the screens, so that when they enter the room, the sounds, the sights, we even have, obviously you can't have a smell generator, but we actually have odors of different things that can be put into the room that kind of hit all those senses.
So as they're in that environment, now when they go out to the field, they've seen it before, they've experienced it, and they're gonna be better prepared for that, so when they go out in the field. And then following up on that, you're in the lab, you're doing immersive, and then we're going out into the companies and we're doing training at the company level, instead of, you know, giving them a scenario where they're just gonna sit in the sitting room and you know, take blood pressures or evaluate a patient. We're putting the patient in the back of their ambulance at their firehouse. So they're using everything out of their ambulance, so they know where to reach to get it. If they don't know where to reach, they can figure that out pretty quickly. And then the other part with that is we're bringing those mannequins, and I think somebody talked about mannequins that are more realistic. So if they're having some type of diabetic emergency and you give them something, then it can, you know, resolve that. Or they're having high blood pressure and you give them a simulated nitro that brings that blood pressure down. So those are things that we're trying to do to improve our EMS care in the city. And like I said, 20 years ago when I went through EMT, it was pretty shaky. But as these new recruits and cadets come out with this training, they are prepared to go out into the field, which I never felt I was really prepared to go out in the field. I always tell everybody I had a hard time spelling EMT, let alone being one. So.
Thanks, Tom.
Yep.
All right, so next, to round us out here before we have a little bit of time left over for the panel, is one and only John Oates. I know you got some things to cover, but I definitely want to hear, the one question I have for you is, how do we build a national framework to ensure immersive learning becomes embedded in training standards? It's kind of what we're all talking about here, but John, throw it to you.
So, at the risk of oversimplifying it, I think we just have to do it, right? We have to get to the point where it's like, look, let's turn the world on its head. Like we keep nudging around the edges and like it's okay to burn a bridge if you don't mind swimming. Like let's get to the point where it's like let's make some significant changes to be able to do it and change. And I know part of one of the things I've been making notes here is, and I appreciate like when you wheel out, it's like, well, it costs $1 million to do that, and then certainly DC's spent cubic dollars to build their simulations, but that over time actually saves money, and it gives us back, you know, the three things that we don't have enough of: time, people, and money. Every single one of those things gives those back to the department and its members tenfold above, you know, what the actual cost is. So I think we need to shift the calculation from cost to value. And that becomes really, really important. It's like, what's the value of doing that? In a lot of cases, what's the value of not doing, you know, the risk of not doing that is usually worse. And to be able to do it in a way that generates the repetition to whether you get good at it. But even that said, like over time, people are like, well, I can't afford to do that. I can make an argument you can afford not to, but one really, really simple, like gross oversimplification that you can use that's relatively, it nudges up against immersive training today, is what we talk about, the challenges of building good fireground, or building up our fireground officers, our fireground commanders, in an era where we don't catch a lot of fire, or if our community doesn't catch a lot of fire. I'm sorry, you can spend 30 minutes on the internet and find 100 videos of fires that look exactly like yours. But in the fire service, we're using those for entertainment, not for training. Let's stop using them for entertainment and start using them for training. And go like, look, we do private dwelling fires. Standard New England, 3-story wood, 3-family, porches on the front, porches on the back. Let's run that fire. You can see the decision, see in real time, or whatever time that is, the decisions that the firefighters make, the company officers make, command officers make, see the outcomes from that, maybe we burned it flat, whatever, and go, okay, how does that match what our department does? Let's go roll another one. It's same thing. See that in a repeatable fashion. So even if you don't have the cash, or don't have the permission, or don't have the ability to be able to use some of these things, you have access to tools that can make things so much better. But the other thing that when we were bouncing around this idea that came to mind is, so again, my other universe in motorsports, when the pandemic happened, a lot of larger, like hiring with NASCAR, Formula One, IndyCar, both from we don't want to get together and we want to save costs, eliminated all testing, all practice, all everything. And that's kind of a big deal, right? Because even for them as professionals, that's how they get better. Similar to us, you have to practice. So what did they do? They invested in simulation to the point where they will run an entire event in the simulator, an entire 3-hour, 500-mile event in the simulator, multiple times. And to the point where it is equal to, like the simulation is good enough that what they learn there translates exactly to what happens in the event. And I think that's where you see these examples of going, it's like, it's generally, particularly yours, which is homegrown, that is a building that looks like a building in your community, it's immediately generalizable. And I think that helps break down the barriers, like it's a video game or it's a toy. No, it's not. It's a valuable teaching tool. We have to twist our brain to understand that it's not, like, this is not your father's fire service.
I don't have any tattoos, but if I was gonna get one, it might be John's quote. It's okay to burn a bridge if you don't mind swimming. One of the best quotes I've heard in a long time. So thank you for elaborating that. So I thought we were done at 2:30, but I just checked. We actually have till 2:40. So I want to leave some time here now and kind of I would encourage all the speakers, Simon, everyone to kind of rapid fire responses that. Again, we kind of just set the stage with some examples from the industry side, from the first responder side, from, again, kind of a micro perspective. But now to kind of turn it to you of kind of what questions do you have? I have some, but before I kind of continue rambling on as a moderator, I'd love to know from what you've heard, any questions to start us off here?
Not necessarily a question, but number one, I also wrote that quote down from John. It's right there. Second one, John, to your point, Gran Turismo, if you've seen that movie, it's probably the most exact digital twin they could make, and they took gamers from basically F1 driving, and they turned them into actual race car drivers that ran it out.
Yeah.
So it's a great book, or a great movie that shows just that. So just a good comment.
Great. Thanks, Ed. Jim?
So I really like the idea of the sharing community. And I know that Brad Wardle from Utah has talked to me about this. How do we do it? How do we get fire departments to get together, leverage the assets they have, and contribute to a single platform sharing community?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I think there needs to be incentive, right, to get people to do it. I think there needs to be a lack of barriers. That's what I'm trying to do with just removing the cost barrier. But I think it's also like an exchange of ideas would really help a lot with that. I mean, you look at, if we're going to talk about iRacing, which is the virtual environment, that's a massive community of people that race, and there's forums, and they share, and that, but what's the incentive for them, right? They have levels in it. They can compete with each other. They have events, and that I think would be the opportunity, is if I could hop on Aries and have somebody from FDNY, Command Unifier, that I get to be a part of as a company. That would be a great, it would draw lots of people to want to be a part of that. And so that's, I think, kind of the missing piece is what is the incentive for an individual or an organization to be a part of it. So we're still working on that, and I would love to hear ideas. But I think going back to, we all kind of seem to be stuck on, we all agree that this is important. Where's the how? How do we make it happen? In aviation, the how was, hey, this crash was caused by this reason, so now we need to have this much training to avoid that reason. And really, the only cost-effective way to do it would be an immersive simulated environment. And so that's kind of the part that's missing in the fire service world is, and I know it's been talked about, and of course with the death of NIOSH, who knows what will happen, but is the human factor component of line of duty deaths. Because you do see some of that in almost every line of duty death or after action. Communication is the issue, right? In all of them, but no one's ever said, okay, well the solution to that is you gotta practice these things before you talk on the radio. And we do it, and it's really basic, right? Like the 4-step process for communication, which is, hey you, it's me, yeah, go ahead, here's what I want you to do, here's what you told me to do. Like that, those 4 steps, I mean, and you would be surprised how unbelievably hard it is to get every member of your fire department to do that correctly. And there have been line of duty deaths because of that hasn't been done correctly. And so, but for your brain to recall that and do it correctly, you have to have done it so many times and so repetitively that you don't even have to think about it. So anyways, I don't know if I answered any questions, but
I think, yes. So you think about, like, let's look in this room. We've got Missouri, Texas, Oklahoma, Colorado, Texas, Connecticut. We know, everybody in this room can sit here and go like, I know a place that would do that. And that becomes the answer. It's like every early adopter needs somebody to germinate that, right? So it's like, if we walk out of here and go like, you know somebody, you know 2 departments in Illinois that have strong leadership and are what I would term a community-sized fire department, something similar in size, be like, hey, I'm gonna connect you with somebody that's doing some really, really trick stuff, and we think it would work well in your place, and you just build it. I agree with you 100%. Like every time that you read a NIOSH line of duty death report, it talks about communication. Everybody thinks that it's radios, and it's like it's not radios. It's humans, and we need to think more about the like. All right, how do we do those things? At some point, you just gotta like let's just go. Let's just do it. Attach interested people with people that have done the work, whether it's in the innovation space, whether it's in we took this shit and actually made it workspace, whatever that is, we just like, let's just do it.
I mean, you're stealing Nike's tagline, just do it.
Yeah.
Throw some bricks against the wall.
Only if I could have the money. Like we'd solve all these problems if we had Nike money.
Well, I
Yeah.
mean, not to put them on the spot, but even Triple F said, hey, we examined these line of duty deaths, and none of them had demonstrated prior to this event their ability to command a Mayday incident. And I mean, that by itself would immediately spur people to be like, okay, well, I guess we better make sure we can show on paper that they've commanded a Mayday incident. But that drives then that decision making into an area where they will end up in immersive environments, because whether it's the immersive environment out in the training field or whether it's the simulator, they're going to want to be able to show, no, we did the thing, we did what's kind of been pointed out as the problem.
Yeah, well said. All right, I'll continue to look around the audience, and I see one in particular. Brad.
Yeah, it just kind of occurs to me, Jim, and it dovetails, and I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, Chief.
John.
John. You know, I think you said you invested $1 million in your program.
Yeah.
And that's a huge investment. I applaud you for investing that. But I'm thinking to myself, if we collectively invest those dollars into something, then we're starting to make an impact in
Yes.
in the fire service. So instead of saying, John, you're investing $1 million, what did you come up with? We collectively get together and say, why don't we build, and we're kind of doing that with this immersive learning, with the partners we're working with. Why don't we pool our money, pool our resources, get more bang for our buck, maybe even some economies of scale too, and make it a more national type of thinking. I mean, the Washington D.C. Command Training Center is cool as hell. I mean, just what I saw there was just telling Russ, we got to build something like that. But I've never seen it. You follow what I'm saying? So we ought to be having conversations about what, just like we're doing, what you're utilizing. But I'm thinking to myself, $1 million. Damn, I wish you didn't have to spend that much money. I'm looking to build the same kind of program for my department, for my organization. Maybe we could have gotten that, you know, together. You follow my logic?
Oh, yeah,
So I'm saying,
100%.
thinking, how do we leverage this conversation and move it into an operational mode where we're doing this together? Because we're all looking for the same thing. I mean, for the most part. I mean, there's nuances in each department, but I think we're all looking for the same thing when it comes to this immersive world.
And most of the stuff that we've done in DC is grant funded. So, you know, all of those simulation labs, we brought the money in grant wise. Running those every day is just a commitment on our end to pay the members overtime to be there. But it is a huge investment for us to continue that and run it on a weekly basis. Or if we're doing a 2-week supervisor class, have that many resources for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
One other thing that we've tried to do, not necessarily regionally, but expand out beyond the Metropolitan Council of Governments is Battalion Chief Exchange Program, where we're using Baltimore, Philly, Harrisburg, Richmond, and they'll send a battalion chief down, they'll ride for 12 hours, and we'll try to hit all of these things that we're doing, and then that battalion chief goes up and rides with them at their respective area, and then what are they doing? And they're just starting that dialogue and making those connections. And we've been doing that for about a year now, so it's definitely paid off.
I think that's cool.
That's cool.
Yeah, well, first of all, don't worry, it wasn't my money. So.
But $1 million.
If it went wrong,
I don't know how big your department is, but $1 million, that's a big investment for any organization.
Yeah, well, I mean, but we spend millions all the time, right? An engine's $2 million, a building's 15. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't want to act like $1 million's not a big deal, but it's like a lot of people can get that if they're able to justify it and show that the value. There's a ton of value. I mean, we get more training. We still have to do the hands-on training, the live burns, all of that. But now we're able to be more focused on that because we're not trying to teach them how to talk on a radio or organize the incident. So even that has more value. But to talking about collectively what we could do, yeah, I think it's very powerful. Even the tool that I think you use, digital combustion. Even that has a big community where people have different files and they share, at least it was back when, the last time I looked at it. So we've had departments talk to me about, well, what you have is fine, but I need an aircraft hangar. I'm like, yeah, well, go build, spend the 40 or 50,000 to build an aircraft hangar, then it's available to everyone, right? We just keep adding these assets, and so that now as it grows, like you said, the economy of scale shrinks, because the goal is high-rise, which is we can't even run that simulation by ourselves as a department. It would, because it takes too many units. So we're gonna have to connect over the network and have help with multiple agencies, probably public and private partnerships with companies and vendors that could help do pieces of it.
One takeaway I'm seeing from a lot of this is how can we create this, Jim's term of the sharing economy amongst the immersive learning here. And I know one thing that always comes down to the cost of all this, but as I had spent some time in the immersive learning space, I think one thing comes down to how immersive does it actually have to be? How high fidelity does it have to be? When knowing this is a training tool, like how good is good enough to be able to then empower the instructor to put you in a learning environment? And I think we could go down that environment, that rabbit hole, but before that, I'll throw it to Michelle really quick.
I want to take kind of a sidestep and ask about Sam, about the development of digital twins. So while there may be this catalog of commonly used buildings, a jurisdiction may have a school system or something like that where they want to repeatedly train where you can't because there's students there every day, right? Where maybe the development of digital twins and incorporating that into immersive learning. So kind of what's the state of that with regard to fire training right now?
Well, actually, we are working currently on that, let's say, on that road, taking the digital twin technology and to provide, for example, the first responders or firefighters, when they respond to an incident, they will have the prior information about that building, for example, that have that fire incident. They know exactly where the equipment are, they know where the cutoff switch is, whatever the location of the points of interest, they go there into their responding. So we think this would be really an enhancement to the fire response. It will enhance the performance. It will also save lives. You know exactly what to do, where you are going, and then your firefighting response will be in a shorter time, and then definitely the investment in doing this also will be saving lives. Saving resources and responding in a more smarter way. So this is currently, as SOLOXR, we are working on it. We started with one, kind of digital twin for the ESS, energy storage system. We are working on creating actually a full immersive kind of training, using the glasses, also using like a regular desktop, a computer or laptop, or even an iPad. We can take you through a fully immersive, energy storage system. You go there, you learn for the firefighters, you learn what is an energy storage system, what are the components, what to deal with, what are the kind of, risk and operations or standard operation procedures that you want to face, and you want to train the, firefighters and emergency responders on how to do this. So, digital twin, I think it is the next step of the, smart future academy or smart, learning and response experience.
So I have one more question. Sorry, do you want to say something?
I was just gonna say, it feels also like it has a tremendous applicability in getting us one step closer to having a pre-fire plan that's actually useful.
Which was my dissertation.
I listened. But yeah, the ability to have something that has value rather than the Napa parts counter book on the dashboard of the apparatus that we can't get through.
Yeah.
There's a question over here. Earlier, is that you?
Yeah, I was
Please.
gonna ask John, being with a volunteer fire department in the Fort Worth area, have you done very much training with other organizations coming in and taking advantage of what you've done?
Yeah, so we have a couple of neighbors who they're kind of combination or transitioning from volunteer to paid, and so they don't really have the staff, so they sit in quite frequently on the training, and that way when they run mutual aid, they can a seamless part of the operations. And so we use NIMS, believe it or not. Yeah, because we kind of consider that the national standard, like that's what you'll be judged against if things go bad. And so then anybody could really integrate into that training. But yeah, we've done it. We haven't done anything remote. The system's designed to be remote, but we haven't done that yet because we just added proximity chat so you can talk to each other, and we just added an integrated radio system so that the radio that can be done over the internet. The next part is then how do we do the debrief, and so that'll be really when we get that established, and that'll be where we can really do a lot with other agencies that can just hop on if they have an internet connection.
Well, I won't ask the question publicly, but after offline, I may see what I can do to bring some people over.
Yeah, anytime.
Off the record.
On the record, anytime, anybody.
So there's only 6 minutes left, and this has been a great dynamic panel, but I wanted to give everyone at least just 1 minute left to almost give like a mic drop moment or sort of like a final thoughts. Of course, there's this whole collaborative conversation happening about immersive learning and this whole kind of creating the rubrics, and some of you on the public safety side, some on the industry side, but kind of just want to give everyone a minute of any sort of anything you could leave us with here today. So start with you.
So we talk about, and somebody had it in their presentation earlier, I don't know if it was Katie but it's train like you're going to play and play like you're going to train. And we talk about that for years. And in fire suppression, it's easy to do. EMS, it's a little more challenging. And some of this immersive stuff really gets us to that point. And like I said, I feel the EMTs and paramedics coming out of our training academy now are much more better prepared to do anything out in the field than 20 years ago when I went through the program. So I think we're getting to that point, and we're getting across the finish line and doing follow-up, because when I graduated from the training academy, it was like good luck, and now it's good luck, but let's come out every quarter and see how you're doing and how you're making out, and is there something else we need to prepare you for out in the field.
Yeah, well said. Thanks. Simon, we'll throw it to you. Just do kind of final comments. I think you've heard what I said, but keep it to a minute or so here.
Sure. Well, thanks for the opportunity. I think just to add to the voices that have all been discussed, the key area to focus on is what is the get a collective view on what is the key problem that everybody's trying to solve, and seek to build the solution to solve that problem. The problem definition never seems to be totally clear. Everybody is in agreement and on the basis that we have a gap in between initial skills acquisition and ongoing continuum of learning and training. But how do you redefine that problem in such a way that you can build a comprehensive collective solution that helps agencies throughout the States and around the world to solve that ongoing challenge of access, frequency, increased training, increased muscle memory, as we talked to earlier, to help firefighters and first responders be better prepared for the unknown risks that they might face in their day-to-day activity?
Thanks, Simon. Jonathan.
Yeah, all right, a Mike Ramble moment.
Please.
Yeah. So I think the important thing to remember is that if we want our firefighters and public safety providers to be able to do things well in the field, they're gonna have to experience them in training. So they will not recall anything that's in a memo or a manual or anything until that knowledge is then put into experience and they're demonstrated it multiple times. I think that's just really the important thing to remember. And we talked a little about time before, and if we want to keep firefighters, the best way to keep firefighters safe and the public safe is to mitigate the incident as fast as possible. Having people well trained and automatically doing the correct things with proper communication is going to move all the mitigating actions closer to the start of the incident, which makes then those resulting actions that exponentially more effective. If you imagine if someone has a grease fire, they can put a lid on it. Very small action at the very beginning of the incident has a massive effect. So through all of this training, if we can move those actions closer and closer to the start of the incident, then we can keep people safer and be more effective.
Well said. Sam.
Well, I have maybe 2 points, and I maybe back to what Jim mentioned. I think what NAFTD, done, like here, we need more of this. So bringing, everybody together in discussing what the future academy of firefighters and what we can do more. I think that's a good, thing to do, and maybe we need more of this. Second, maybe Jonathan, when you mentioned the cost is $1 million to develop this, I see it more as like a return on investment. This is like an investment, and by time you will have like a return on that investment because it's going to save life, plus also you're going to save cost on the long run. Third thing, and we mentioned this, maybe Ken mentioned about the AI. I think we should, think because like our developers always they want to push AI, and I think maybe it's about time when we can see where the regulation can take us to integrate the AI within what we are doing in the development.
Thanks, Sam. And hitting cleanup here, John Oates.
How many people that are fire service engaged at one time sat in a classroom with an instructor doing a fire service training presentation using an overhead projector? When was the last time you saw an overhead projector? Exactly.
Gordon Graham.
And the fire service lost its mind. Oh my God, we're gonna go to slides. Oh my God, we're gonna go to PowerPoint. Oh my God, we're gonna go to immersive learning. At some point we have to stop the silliness and let's just go do. And I think that's part of everyone in this panel was bold enough to go all right, I'm gonna throw the rock and see what happens. And I think continuing that conversation again, focused on value, and I think the chief hit the nail on the head. It is less about what it means to us and more of what it means to the people we render service to every day. And you're 100% right. When I came out of EMT school, I was nationally registered EMT in 19 whatever it was, and it's all right, now what? And you got all that on the street. Well, that's because now you're experimenting on humans. That's terrible and against the law. And the same with where did we get our fireground experience? I got my fireground experience going going to fires and going to other people's fires and sitting and watching and learning. Well, I should be able to do that in the fire station and not have to worry about burning down somebody's crap because I wasn't any good at my job. So I think that continual evolution, whether we like it or not, like that 1921 pumper is not going to fires anymore. Steam engines aren't going to fires anymore. We aren't teaching kids with overhead projectors anymore. Let's just stop the silliness and go do some cool shit.
Just do it. All right, thank you all. Hey, no problem.
In the future, it's coming faster. Maybe this is
So we're just going to reset the stage here, and we're going to get a fire department case study about DC fire and EMS with Chief Chenworth and Jeff Leonard.
Recording stopped.
So we'll turn the podium over to them.